Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about how to approach and navigate through the reading section in various academic English tests such as the TOEFL IBT. Before we start, there are certain principles to understand. First of all, these exams never expect you to understand every single detail in the reading passage. They just want you to understand the main points and certain details which are centered around the questions. So, even if, let's say, you understand 70 or 80% of a reading passage, there is still a possibility that you can answer all the questions correctly. Secondly, you are racing against the time. A typical reading passage involves around 700 words with 6 paragraphs, and there are 10 questions to answer. You have to do this in under 20 minutes. That's why, even if you want to, you may not be able to read every single thing. So you have to approach the passage strategically. Finally, there are different types of questions in the exam. These questions have different expectations from you. For some of the questions, information from a single sentence or even a single word may be enough. But for some other questions, you may need information from the whole passage or the whole paragraph. That's why you need to understand what they expect from you. Now, let's talk about how we should approach the reading section in general. When you start a reading passage in an exam like TOEFL IBT, the first thing you can do is to read the first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph. The purpose here is to understand what each paragraph is about, how it starts and how it ends, and when we do this for every paragraph, then we have an understanding of what is going on in this reading passage, what the reading passage is about, how it starts and how it ends, and what it focuses on as subcategories throughout the passage. Well, there is something important in here. The first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph, typically in a reading passage, it makes a total of 12 sentences if there are 6 paragraphs, and these sentences are usually enough to answer most of the questions in the reading passage. Well, this is highly cost-effective. After you finish reading the first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph, you should take a look at the questions for each specific paragraph. You will see the questions right next to the paragraphs that they are about. When you read a question, you will understand whether you need to read the remaining sentences in that specific paragraph or not. In some questions, you will need the sentences in between. In some other questions, you will not. For example, when you take a look at the first question, you will see that this question only wants the meaning of the word scarce from you. And when you take a look at the other questions, you will see that this is the only question from paragraph number 1. That's why in paragraph number 1, you will not read these sentences. So you don't have to read them unless you have to. You can use the extra time in one of the following paragraphs. But when you take a look at the second question and the third question, which are related to paragraph 2, you will see that one of them is a negative fact question and the other one is a rhetorical purpose question. Well, when you take a look at this, you easily understand that there is a high likelihood of you needing the information from the sentences in between. That's why you have to read paragraph 2 in its entirety, and you can use the extra time you have made from not reading the whole part of paragraph 1 and try to understand everything more effectively in paragraph number 2. Well, when you look at question number 4, you will see that this is a reference question. Well, just like in paragraph 1, a reference question means that you only have to focus on that specific sentence. Sometimes you may need information, before this one or after this one, but that specific sentence is typically enough, which means I do not read every sentence in paragraph 3 either. Well, I'm not going to read all of it. All I will do is, after reading the first sentence and the last sentence, of course, beforehand, all I will have to do is to focus on this sentence to answer question number 4. Now, moving on to question number 5 and question number 6, I see that there is a fact question and there is a sentence simplification question. Well, question number 6 is already about the bold sentence in here. And I see that the only sentences that I may not have to read are these ones in here. Well, considering the fact that question number 5 is a fact question, well, the most logical way to approach this paragraph is to read these sentences as well, because we have already read the majority of the paragraph and there are 2 questions from this paragraph. There is a likelihood of us needing some information from these sentences. So what we are going to do is to read this paragraph in its entirety. When we move on to question number 7 and paragraph 5, we see that there is a vocabulary question and there is a sentence insertion question. We have already read the first sentence and the last sentence, and when we take a look at what is in between, we will easily understand that this question, number 8, already requires us to read everything in this paragraph. There is just one scenario. Sometimes, even when you start reading the second sentence and the third sentence, just like this one in here, you may find the suitable location where this specific sentence must be inserted. In such situations, you may not have to read the remaining sentences, but usually the most logical and the safest way in such scenarios is to read the whole paragraph. Now, when we move on to question number 9, we see that there is an inference question, but there is just a single question from paragraph 6. So in these situations, what I recommend is this. Paragraph 9 may require you to read what is in between this paragraph, but there's also a likelihood that it does not. So 30% or 40% of the time, the first sentence and the last sentence may be enough to answer this question. So what is a better approach is this. Read the question, first of all, and all its options, and see whether the information that you already have is enough to answer this question. If it's not enough, you can read as much as you need to in order to answer the question. This will provide you some extra time in many cases. Now, when we move on to the final question, we see that this is a summary question. As you can see, there's an introductory sentence and there are some answer choices in here. It wants us to create a good summary of this reading passage. Well, the first sentence and the last sentence from every single paragraph will already be enough for me to answer such a question type. Well, in a nutshell, This is one of the ways of approaching and navigating through a TOEFL IBT reading passage or in any related academic English reading test. There are some other ways as well. For example, in some strategies, people recommend that you only have to read the first sentence of every paragraph. This is also logical in some situations, but I find this strategy the fastest and the safest at the same time. So there's a pros and cons situation in here, and I recommend my students to approach a reading passage just like this. Typically, in under 20 minutes, you can answer the majority of the questions correctly with this approach. That's all for now. In this video, I'm not going to go into detail with every specific question type. In the following videos, I will try to give some information about how to answer each specific question type in detail. I hope you have benefited from this video, and if so, I would like to see you soon. Take care and have a good time.